My name is Ramesh Soni, and I'm a professor of management at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. In this module, we will talk about inventory management. Inventory management has become very important for all organizations in today's globally competitive environment. You know, product life cycle is shrinking, and yet the customer is becoming more demanding. Therefore, businesses cannot have too much inventory as the cost goes up, and yet they must provide higher level of service by fulfilling customer orders promptly. Types of inventory management system. There are two broad categories: independent demand system and dependent demand system. Independent demand system depends on external factors, customer demand. For example, how many tables will be sold depends on what is the demand by the customer. However, if you have decided that you will sell 1,000 tables, how many legs you need to produce, how many tabletops you need to produce depends on how many tables you are going to make. And that is dependent demand system. In this module, the focus is on independent demand system. What is inventory? I have a big definition. It's called stuff. Stuff that floats around in any organization or in the pipeline. And the type of inventory includes things such as raw materials, supplies, purchase parts, partially completed work, work in progress, finished good inventories, replacement parts, tools, supplies, goods in transit, in warehouses, in retail locations, and so on. The question is inventory good or bad? The answer is it depends. It could be both. It is bad because we know it ties up the capital. There's a risk of obsolescence. What you have today may become obsolete very quickly as the product life cycle is shrinking. There's a risk of shrinkage. Shrinkage can be attributed to not only customer but also employees. Shrinkage is basically a euphemism for stealing. Employees steal and customers steal. So things become fewer in number, they disappear. Shelf life. Many of the products have shelf life. So you cannot have too much inventory because they will go bad. And there's a carrying cost, which is providing storage, money tied up, providing for security, and so on. Now, why it is good? It is good because, number one, it acts as a shock absorber. Meaning, if there is an imbalance between demand and production, if you have some inventory, you will be able to keep fulfilling the demand. Also, if there is a shortage of supply, you will be okay because you have some inventory sitting with you. And therefore, you are able to meet the anticipated demand because you have inventory which could be going in peaks and valleys. Demand sometime increase, sometime decrease. Smooth out production requirement. If demand is varying throughout the year, you don't want to constantly hire and fire people. So what you do is you produce at a constant rate and then use inventory to meet those peaks and valleys in demand. It also ensures that you don't have stock out situation because you are sitting with inventory. Sometimes it is a hedge against price increase. You know that a price increase may happen, and therefore you buy in advance. It's like buying on sale. I do remember when I was working in a textile mill as an engineer, my boss went out on a global trip buying caprolactam, which is a raw material that makes polyester filament. And he was expecting that there will be a global shortage, but he bought inventory. He bought his supplies for raw material, and we had the raw material. And when the shortage happened, we were in good shape. Quantity discount. Sometimes it's better to buy in bulk rather than buying in small quantity. You get quantity discount. Also, you save on transportation cost, shipping cost, because you buy in bulk. A simple example, when I need a marker for writing on the marker board, I don't go to my secretary and say, hey, I need a marker board. And she says, okay, let me fill out a requisition form. She pulls out a form, fills out that, I need one marker, and then transmit the order, and a truck, an 18-wheeler, comes from Illinois and delivers the one marker that I need. That is not going to be cost effective. Inventory accounting system. In managing inventory, we need to know how you are placing order and how frequently you're assessing what is your inventory. There are two approaches. One is a periodic system. In periodic system, you physically count every item you have in your inventory and then place order for all items depending on how many quantities you have on hand at one time. So this kind of system, for example, can be useful for a remote store located in Nevada where the delivery truck comes every 2 weeks. And then what you do is you go through each item in your inventory and say, hey, I have 10 of these, I think I'm good. I have 20 of these, I'm good. This one, I have 7, I need to order 20 more, and so on. So when the delivery truck comes, you tell the guy, hey, when you are coming next time, bring 7 of these, 20 of these, 10 of these, and so on. So you're placing order for all items at one time. What's more applicable and found today is the perpetual inventory system, where the record of inventory is maintained at every moment. There are two types of system. One is known as point of sale, which is a complex system. The other one can be as simple as two-bin system. In the two-bin system, you basically have two bins containing inventory. One is in the back office and one is in the front. You meet customer demand from the front. As the bin becomes empty, take the empty bin on the back, pull out the full bin, and place an order for empty bin. And that order can be placed at any moment. The second system is the point of sale system, where as an item is sold, the inventory record is updated and order can be placed at any moment. For example, in Walmart, they attempt to place order for an item every day, every moment. There's a complete record of how many items have been sold, and in many cases, they attempt to deliver those items within 2 days to make sure that their shelves are fully loaded. An empty shelf is not acceptable because somebody may have walked in looking for that item and the item was not there, and that's a lost sale. So their goal is to order items so that they arrive and their quantity is always sitting on the shelf. There's something known as ABC analysis, which is similar to Pareto analysis, where we identify which items are critical and which items are trivial. You place more emphasis on critical items when it comes to managing inventory and less emphasis on other items which are trivial. So using some measure of importance, you need to classify your inventory. Typically, the classification is dollar value, but it need not always be dollar value. It could be things such as how far away the supplier is, how critical that item is to the operation. What happens is this item going to become obsolete and you will have difficult time getting a replenishment for those items. So those can be another factor. As I mentioned, for most critical item, you will have elaborate control system. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a printer in my office and the toner cartridge costs $85. So when I go to my secretary, she said, okay, you need a toner, and writes down the detail. On this date, I took out a toner, and so on. And now she has 3 more toners sitting in her inventory. But when I need paper clips, do you think that she sits down that, I have taken 1 paper clip and she has now 73 more paper clips sitting there in her inventory? Obviously not. Okay, because that's not a very critical item. That's a cheap item. That's inexpensive. All right. So what you do is when you develop your ABC analysis, obviously more critical items, they must also be counted every few weeks, every few months, every few days, whatever that cycle may be, and reconciled. In stores, in many detailed places, they have to reconcile because their computer system may say they have 10 of those items sitting there, but in reality they may have only 7 because 3 items shrunk. So they need to at some point go in and say, okay, it's a loss, let's reconcile and let's bring these two quantity on hand and what the system says at the same point. So when you classify these items in 3 categories, A, B, and C, and if you're using dollar value, you will notice that item A are very important. They are very few in number, 5 to 15% of total inventory items, but they account for 70 to 80% of dollar value. B items are moderately important, 30% of the inventory items, but they count for about 15% of your dollar usage. Category C items are too many of them, too many trivial small items, 55 to 65% of your inventory items, but they account for very small value, 5 to 15% in terms of total value of inventory. Obviously, item A will require an elaborate control mechanism for managing inventory. You need to also perhaps do reconciling more often. But item C, you just want to make sure you have enough. You don't have to have an elaborate inventory management system.